Well, everyone, let's get down to business because Ubisoft have had their earnings call. That means we know some things about the money, which, let's be real, we don't really care about the money that much. But there are things about their overall just state as a company, the games that are coming out, and what we can expect. So, let's dive into things. Now, the first thing with the numbers, basically, the money's pretty good. Of course, the money is driven by games. That's the more interesting bit. So let's talk about the games. Overall, as a company, their monthly active users are up 9% versus H1 fiscal year 2020. So that's the MAUs. The unique active players, though, in that same time period, is up 15%. So that basically just means lots of people are playing, and they are doing pretty good at new user acquisition. Now, they're touting the strength of their back catalogue, and there's a few interesting little tidbits here. Basically, I thought it was interesting that they brought up The Crew 2. I thought we'd all forgotten that The Crew 2 existed, really. But special mention to The Crew 2, with engagement and bookings up respectively 70 and 53% versus Q2 fiscal year 2020. What the hell? So there you go. The Crew 2's almost doubled its engagement. That is pretty impressive. And they also highlight, of course, Valhalla, For Honor, Crew 2, Rainbow Six Siege, and Watch Dogs Legion. And of course, they talk up how well their brands are doing. And that's where things actually do get a little bit interesting. So the real hero game for them right now is Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Valhalla is actually doing better than seemingly any other Assassin's Creed, at least recently. They say that, sadly, they did not highlight their most profit-generating game, but they have said that Assassin's Creed Valhalla is now Ubisoft's second most profit-generating game in company history. It's been out for like a year. That's really quite impressive. And GameSpot actually followed up with them, and they confirmed that Valhalla had higher daily average revenue per user, DARPU, than Assassin's Creed Odyssey. So basically, game over game, it is doing better, and the recent Siege of Paris expansion had record engagement for the series. Now, I would think there. Siege of Paris, that was a pretty big thing in the TV show Vikings. I have to imagine that is how a bunch of people came to know of the Siege of Paris. I imagine that is a crowd that's very much going to be interested in a game like Valhalla, so I wouldn't be surprised if that's what really drove the playtime up. Now, also Far Cry 6. Far Cry 6 is a bit of a weird thing because it's kind of just more Far Cry. If you want Far Cry, yeah, it's more Far Cry. But apparently that's actually pretty okay because early sales are in line with Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and the playtime per player is up 25% versus Far Cry 5. They say it's set to be a strong performance this holiday. Honestly, that was a little bit surprising to me.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I feel like Ubisoft almost kind of have found themselves in the same place that EA found themselves with a lot of stuff. Because I don't know anyone who is playing Valhalla. And especially, I don't know anyone who's pumping money into it. So my hypothesis has to be it's, like you say, about the people who watch Vikings, and then, they see the Siege of Paris. Maybe they're watching it on their PS4 or their PS5, and then they see the advert for the Siege of Paris and go, why not? But they're not going to be like the most heavily engaged gamers. They're not going to be people who are, you're looking around for what the best thing is. They're going to play whatever they enjoy, and that'll do them all right. I think that's kind of the thing where the same way it's hard to understand how EA get tons and tons and tons of like recurring revenue. I think it just looks like, especially with the Crew 2, it just seems like there's this massive silent like array of people who are just happy to sit and play whatever game that they like and will be caught by all of those revenue generating things.
103 million PlayStation 4s, roughly.
It's
116?
It's 116 million, I think, was the last time.
116 million PS4s.
Yeah, so that's just the case of, it's going to look weird to us looking in from the perspective we are from the entire industry, but it looks like they just have so much of a corner on that market where there are people who will play Valhalla a couple hours a week and they'll just be invested every time they play. They'll maybe spend $1 or $2. I don't know.
That's it. Who is buying things? I mean, buying an expansion, I get that.
Of course, yeah.
Like, I bought the Ireland expansion because I want to see how they did Ireland, because where I literally grew up is in the game a little bit. So I can see that, but like the cosmetics, those things that have been in all of these recent Assassin's Creed games, seriously, like, do you buy them? Do you know someone who buys these? I'm completely at a loss. Honestly, it's I'm literally at a loss. I suppose I can understand people buying the boosts, and maybe this is a situation where Ubisoft have successfully got away with it.
It seems that
where, they just add, I forget exactly how much, is it like 2,000 whatever points, whatever it costs, maybe let's just say it's 10, 20 bucks. Have they got it so that a shockingly high percentage of their players buy those boosts, effectively just selling the game for quite a bit more money?
It must be that.
Because I know with Assassin's Creed Odyssey, people really felt like for that game to be in the right place, that those boosts were very, very the game felt better with them. So I just have to wonder if you have any insight in that, because I don't think either me or Matt are the player profile that would really be going for a bunch of that MTX. So do let us know, because whatever it is, this live serviceifying of a single player RPG experience, they seem to actually be pulling it off by the numbers. So yeah, let us know.
Was Valhalla the game they started monetizing the transmog element? Was that Odyssey?
There was a little bit of a hubbub over that versus the past games. So basically, yes.
Okay.
But it was tied into how you could basically purchase currency, and once you got it very... this could have changed since then. Just the story at the time was like your basically just your ability to get lots of money would dwindle as you would get to the end game, and then it would become quite grindy, which is one of the things Skill Up pointed out in his review of the game. So there's that. Now moving on though for more Assassin's Creed, there is Assassin's Creed Infinity. Now this is a very interesting, bizarre story because, well, it was odd. It seemed to be a free-to-play massive platform that had loads of Assassin's Creeds within it. We've recently heard basically the reports of it housing more singular Assassin's Creed stories within it. Yeah. Well, finally, we've actually got something from the horse's mouth. So, here's the quote. It's not going to be a free-to-play game. This game is going to have a lot of narrative elements in it. It's going to be a very innovative game, but it will have what players already have in the Assassin's Creed games. All the elements they love, right from the start. So it's going to be a huge game, but with lots of elements that already exist in the games we've published in the past. But also an innovative game. It's going to be big and small. Who knows? So all of that is in line with some permutation of what Jason Schreier talked about quite a while ago. We had a recent update on it like a week ago. Now, according to Bloomberg's reporting, this is at least 2024, so it's way, way, way far out. Perhaps that's the future of the Assassin's Creed franchise.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking the other day, was it not just they said they will do this, but they'll also continue their full releases at the same time? So it's not like this is going to replace Assassin's Creed, but it's going to be like, I imagine what they consider their answer to the metaverse, the ongoing thing of just, here's the Assassin's Creed that's a live service that keeps going, but also here's the big one to buy every 2 or 3 years. But it's, I find Infinity very interesting because every time it's brought up, I find it very hard to distinguish what's been said and what's obvious, knowing what the Assassin's Creed, like the actual setup of that narrative is, of being able to visit all these different things with the Animus. I think it's the kind of thing, if someone played the first maybe 2 Assassin's Creeds and then thought, what does this look like in 10 years time, the answer probably would be Infinity.
Yeah.
So I think it's the obvious thing, and I think it's going to do very well. It's just can they avoid Ubisofting it?
And the question really, Matt, is will the future be fungible or non-fungible?
Absolutely not fungible at all.
Because French game developer and publisher Ubisoft has shared its plans to be the key player in the industry when it comes to developing projects based on the play-to-earn concept. Blockchain technology and NFTs have begun disrupting the games industry. Though Valve previously removed blockchain and NFTs in Steam, others like Epic are more welcoming. Now it looks like Ubisoft wants to take part in the action. The company did not only invest in Animoca Brands, a blockchain gaming company, but also announced its plans to integrate blockchain technology into its video games releasing in the future. So this is, this is International Business Times reporting on Ubisoft.
So I guess first things first, that means that Ubisoft games will no longer be allowed on Steam for a start.
Yeah, so basically in the earnings call, Yves said that, so the executive, who believes blockchain is, quote, very attractive for the long term, said the company is interested in creating digital economies. As you can see, this industry is changing regularly with lots of new revolutions happening. We consider blockchain to be one of those revolutions. It will imply more play to earn. That will enable more players to actually earn content, own content, and we think it's going to grow the industry quite a lot. Look, here's a way of thinking about this. Why make games when you can run the platform where games are sold? Valve basically can just make games as a hobby or a passion project. The real money just comes from being able to skim 20 to 30% off PC gaming as much as they can. So when you're going to make a game, well, what about you make a game with an economy? How about you make a game with an economy in some sort of way where you skim something off that? Do that successfully, and you have a pretty damn crazy situation. I mean, I don't know, could there be a way to do like a FIFA Ultimate Team, integrate that with NFTs so you can have like some uniqueness on the card packs, on the cards you actually get, then have a player trading thing, and set it up so that with every single transaction or trade that happens, EA gets some money. Not saying EA are going to do that, but when you look at how these big companies are going to view things like this, I think it is roughly along those terms. So that's another thing that did come out of the earnings call. I think more than most, Ubisoft seem pretty interested in this.
Just the EA Ultimate Team thing really, really gets me there.
Yeah.
Because all you have to do then is like tap into the rarity market. So you look at how people have been treating, Pokemon cards the past year or 2 years because of this implied rarity. If you're FIFA Ultimate Team and now you've got, scarcity in the players, in the cards, and then you tax player trading, obviously they'll trade between each other for FIFA coins, and then you cut a little bit off for tax, and then suddenly you've got all of the money in the world from taxing all these player interactions, which is going even a step further than being the platform. It's having actual taxation on a bunch of digital stuff that's moving around, which is obviously where Valve got a lot of their money from, doing the trading card thing on Steam.
Yeah.
That's a move.
Big. So moving on then, one thing that has characterized Ubisoft lately is lots of delays. We don't really need to belabor every point there. Their premium games have been delayed to hell. And it's been really rough. I mean, if you've been excited, if you enjoyed the event and you really want Rainbow Six Extraction, that's going to take a while. Where is it? So this has had a little bit of, investor confidence rattled, right? Because one of the hopes is, that free-to-play would do well. And basically, for all of this, Yves had a bit of a response saying, looking at our free-to-play operations, let me be clear. Our organic value creation model implies that we may go through phases of trial and error where sometimes we fail, but we always learn, grow, and become better positioned for success on subsequent attempts. Saying that about the games, I wonder about this stuff. Seems like that maybe isn't moving the way the employees want, but to continue. While we are never satisfied with our pace of progress, we have a proven track record in building new skills, technology, and capabilities through our iterative process. Recently, we have reviewed our different initiatives and taken necessary decisions. We are confident about applying our iterative process to free-to-play and ultimately, that will ultimately create great value, expand our brand's reach, and inaudible our recurring revenue. You always want to have your recurring revenue be inaudible. But basically, Yves' response to all of this was, yeah, we're going to fuck up, but we're going to keep on, doing stuff, and eventually it's going to work. Now, you can either say, yep, they're committed, they're going to have a few failures, but they'll get there in the end, or you could say they're throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks. You can think either. It's really just down to personal perception. I would certainly say that, apparently Hyperscape's actually a pretty good game. It just isn't really what people wanted. I'm sure that Ghost Recon Tarkov-inspired thing is probably a very good game. It's just not really what people wanted. So, that sort of thing. They're maybe not doing the best job at making games that people want, and maybe not the best job of being a thought leader in some of those spaces. Like, at least if you look at Rainbow Six Siege, that was like new and innovative in the shooter market in a pretty transformative way, rather than an innovative iteration. It was an innovative evolution. And I think that is why some of their more recent things haven't hit with players.
Yeah, it's because it was the Rainbow Six people wanted, but it was Rainbow Six in a format that works for modern esports kind of play, or esports inspired play, where it's kind of, do you like League of Legends but also want a shooter and like a tactical shooter? Then there you go, perfect. But I think it's very interesting to see that, because I'm genuinely surprised that all of these numbers look so good. Because if you looked at like any of the headlines, all you see is Ubisoft haven't released any games that anyone's liked. The games are being, dragged through the mud headline-wise, with Valhalla over microtransactions a little bit. Far Cry 6 over not being particularly special by comparison. But some of that seems like the same thing that, like, we get caught up in some of what the critics do sometimes, which is, this isn't really evolutionary, this doesn't fit our tastes as people who are hyper-engaged in the market.
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, the people who are buying it are buying it. Almost the equivalent of, the people who are happy to go to the shop and buy a bottle of Coke instead of seeing the new flavor. And it's just that kind of solid baseline seems to work for them, despite, them shitting the bed everywhere else. Because that's, like, I'm genuinely shocked that they clearly have the room to move and make all these mistakes if it doesn't affect their bottom line too hard. Obviously, you can talk about opportunity costs and stuff like that. How much better would this year have looked if, everything came out on time and wasn't destroyed? But it's that case where they don't appear to be in a rush. They can actually get this iterative process down right now. As to whether they literally can is a different question, but they at least have the time to do it, which is certainly something.
Yeah, the only other thing to really cover here is the harassment side of things, where basically investors didn't really ask any questions. We, of course, know that the employees are not reassured. With Blizzard actually making some material changes, Activision Blizzard King, that is, there have been fresh pushes from the Ubisoft employees to, put more pressure on management. Thus far, we haven't really seen a great deal, and I don't think that anything at the earnings call really changed that. Which, not good stuff to have going on. And that essentially is it for the state of Ubisoft. I think it basically just is. They have a lot of games that are sleeper hits. They clearly have their audience. Their audience seems to lap them up. They seem to have good recurring revenue on these games, even though me and you can't really understand why. They seem to have that. And, it's funny because you could say that this is them kind of doing badly. Like, the amount of delays, the amount of free-to-play projects that haven't kicked off. And it's like, even with all of that, they're still doing pretty good. So it does make you wonder, fast forward a few years.
Yeah.
The stuff that's currently going good, assuming that still holds, what could it be like when they're big new things,
Yeah.
That said, Far Cry 7 probably shouldn't feel like Far Cry 6.
Yeah, of course.
I need to change that up a bit.
Yeah, but that's a very good point, because to look at the numbers, net booking, 718 million euro, minus 5% year on year. If this year, with almost no releases, just this complete nightmare of a situation, everything's delayed, and their name dragged through the mud. If that's minus 5%, what does a good year look like?
Yeah.
Does it look like 80% plus year on year, 100% year on year? I'd be very interested to see. I
have a feeling that the people who bought the dip whenever Rainbow Ghost Recon Breakpoint and all those delays happened, the stock just went plummeted. I feel like the people who bought that dip are probably going to be happy in the next few years.
I imagine so.
So there we go. That's the state of Ubisoft as we see it right now. Let us know what you think, especially if you do partake in their sort of single-player live servicey games. I really want to know what your experience is like, so let us know. Thanks for watching. See you next time.